All right, class. So our discussion up to this point has focused on the important work catalogers do in terms of assigned authorized subject headings to a book. Through their efforts, the subject content of each item in a library is carefully described. That's only half the story. Libraries must also organize their entire collection in some systematic ways so that books can be found quickly and easily. How is this enormous challenge faced? Well, we're going to learn about that today by learning about locating materials using the Library of Congress call numbers. So as mentioned earlier, libraries organize their collections according to subject matter. This arrangement is intended to be convenient for library users since books on the same subject are placed together on the shelf. But in order for subject-based organization to succeed, it must be based on a definite and established plan that can be referred to again and again. Therefore, our librarians have to create classification systems. A classification system is an established plan that divides all knowledge into precise categories and subcategories. Each category is called a class, and each subcategory is called a division or a subdivision. This division of knowledge always proceeds from general classes to more and more specific subdivisions. Each class and subdivision is assigned a specific symbol, thus ensuring that books on that subject will always be classified or grouped under that symbol. The symbols used are letters, numbers, or a combination of letters and numbers depending on the classification system being used. Libraries have thousands of printed materials, not to mention all the information that is accessible online, such as books, magazines, and movies. Because there are so many, it would be impossible to find anything if they weren't organized. To make everything easy to find and browse, several different classification systems have been developed that are used all over the world. We use the Library of Congress and the Dewey Decimal System. Academically, we use the Library of Congress classification in our main collection, and everything else except our juvenile and curriculum collections on the third floor, which we use the Dewey Decimal System. But we're going to learn about the Library of Congress classification system today. The Library of Congress classification system was first developed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries to organize and arrange the book collections of the Library of Congress. Over the course of the 20th century, the system was adopted for use by other libraries as well, especially large academic libraries like us. It is currently one of the most widely used library classification systems in the United States and the world. The system divides all knowledge into 21 basic classes, which we'll go over soon, each identified by a single letter of the alphabet. Most of these alphabetical classes are further divided into more specific subclasses, identified by 2-letter or occasionally 3-letter combinations. So, our learning objectives today. We want to learn how to find the item's location, how we read call numbers, and how the order of call numbers are arranged. So as I was saying before, there are 21 main classes of the Library of Congress classification system, A through Z, where A means general works, all through and up to Z, which means bibliography and library science. This will make more sense a little bit later. But these main classes are broken into principal subdivisions by an added letter. For example, NA. N is fine arts, A is visual arts. NB. Fine arts, sculpture. N is still fine arts, B is sculpture. NC, still fine arts, is N. C is drawing, design, and illustration, and so on. Principal subdivisions are in turn subdivided by adding numbers to the letters. This dramatically expands subject specificity. For example, NB, back to sculpture, subdivision is subdivided with numbers as follows. For sculpture, 1 through 50 is general, 60 through 1115 is history, 1160 through 1195 is design and techniques. Now, don't think you have to memorize all these. I still don't know them from memory and have to look them up, but eventually, the more you work with it, the more it'll come to you naturally. So libraries in the United States generally use either the Library of Congress classification system or, like I said, the Dewey Decimal Classification system to organize their books. Academic libraries use the Library of Congress classification system and a call number to show a book's location on the shelf, while most public libraries and K-12 school libraries use the Dewey Decimal System. Call numbers are part of the identification process of the classification system, which libraries use to organize the books on the shelf. So these letters and these numbers, which are called the call number, are used to arrange the books so that the books with the same topic can be shelved together. So like I said, the two major classification systems is the U.S. Dewey Decimal System and the Library of Congress classification system. But since we are an academic library, we'll be further discussing the Library of Congress classification system. So each book in the library has a unique call number. A call number is like an address. It tells us where the book is located inside the library. Call numbers appear on the spines of books and journals and in the library's catalog. So take note that the same call number can be written from top to bottom or left to right. The Library of Congress classification arranges their materials by subjects. The first sections of the call number represent the subject of the book. The letter and decimal section of the call number often represents the author's last name. The call number, as you can see in this image, can be on the spine of the book and in the library's online catalog. The call number can be written, like I said, from top to bottom, such on the spine, or from left to right in the online catalog. So libraries use these classifications to organize the books on the shelves. A classification system uses these letters or numbers to arrange the books so the same topic are together. And this arrangement results in serendipitous browsing. You find one book in the catalog, you go to the shelf, and an even better book is sitting right next to it. This figure, well, 4 figures, shows you how to read your call numbers. So Figure 1, you have the title of the book, but the call number tells you exactly where it is by Figure 2, the first 2 lines describing the subject of the book, LB 2395, Methods of Studies in Higher Education. Figure 3, and this is the author's last name, C65, Coleman. And Figure 4, that's just the year the book was published. So the library classification system uses a combination of letters and numbers to arrange materials on their library shelves by subjects, the first 2 lines, an author's last name, the 3rd line, and the publication date, the last line. Here is another example. The first 2 lines describe the subject of the book, Vietnamese conflict. The 3rd line represents the author's last name, Holland, and the last line represents the date of publication. Sorry about that. I had a technical difficulty and I had the same image and the same slide, so I had to get rid of it. So anyway, it's not necessary to memorize all the details of the 2 library classification systems. However, it is very useful to know which one is being used in your library and its basic structure. So become familiar with the classification letters and numbers for the subject or field in which you are doing your research. For example, in the Library of Congress classification system, the call number for economic history is HC10 through HC1085. Knowing this, you can go to that section of the collection, browse the shelves in that call number range, and find materials on that subject grouped together. This is just an example of how you would read a call number line by line on the shelf. So you would read the first line in alphabetical order, A, B, B, F, C, D, L, LA, LB, LC, M, ML, etc. You would read the second line as a whole number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 45, 100, 101, 1000, 2000, 2430. The third line is a combination of letters and numbers. You would read that letter alphabetically and read the number as a decimal. So .C65 is actually .65. .C724 is .724. And then some call numbers have more than one combination letter to number line. But the last line is always going to be the year published, and that's read in chronological order. So here's an assessment. Select where a book with the LC call number LB2395 C651991 should be shelved. And I'll give you a couple seconds. All right, so this one's kind of obvious because LB gives it away, but as you can see right here, LB is the first two lines describing the subject of the book. It's the first two lines describing the subject of the book, which is the methods of study in higher education. C65, the third line, representing the author's last name, Coleman, and 1991, representing the date of publication. So as a review of this quick little teaching moment, most academic libraries, including the Odom Library, uses the Library of Congress classification system. Call numbers are like addresses, and each book has a unique call number. They can appear on the spines of books or in the online catalog. Each line of the LC call number represents either a subject area, author, title, or publication date. And call numbers are arranged line by line just as they are read, starting with the letter or letters in alphabetical order. So, just some final remarks. You should also be aware of the following general principles regarding classification systems. A single class number does not necessarily embrace all the books on a given subject. Although it's useful to know the class number for a subject that interests you, keep in mind that a single class number does not necessarily embrace all the books on that subject. Theoretically, a library classification system would place books on any one subject in only one place on the shelves. However, this becomes impossible for books that deal with more than one subject. For example, a book such as Women, Philosophy, and Sport, a collection of critical essays, could be classified under Women's Studies, which is HQ, Philosophy, which is B, or Sports, which is GV. Those are far apart from each other on the shelves. However, only one class number can be assigned to this book, and a cataloger will have to decide by examining the book and choosing the class number that corresponds to the subject covered most prominently by that book. Subjects covered in the book but not reflected in the call number will be described by additional subject headings assigned by the cataloger. And then some subjects encompass so many aspects that it's impossible to group that single subject into one place in the library. For example, someone could write a book on the Great Depression and discuss it as a historical event which would take place in history, which is E. Another author's book on the Great Depression could discuss it from an economic perspective, which would place it in the economics class, which is HB through HD. A third book could discuss the Great Depression from the point of view of sociology, and it would belong in the sociology class, which is HM. These two principles illustrate how complex subject classification can be. Therefore, you must rely on the online catalog for comprehensive subject searching. And if you need more help, here is a link to the full Library of Congress classification outline. It'll give you all of those A through Z subject headings, divisions, subdivisions, everything you need. And if you need any more help, contact me or your local librarian. Thank you so much.